Fanboy Friday with Mark Walters and Robert Miguel.
Coyote Country
104.9.
All right, Friday at 8:30, which means it's time again for Fanboy Friday. And with me on the phone, checking in from Dallas, Texas, professional Q&A moderator and speaker, film critic at bigfanboy.com, and the show director at Dallas Comic Show, it's Mark Walters, everybody. Good morning, sir.
Hello. How goes it, Robert?
I'm great, man. So I'm still excited about the movie Solo, which I saw last weekend. You said it was great. It was, in fact, amazing. And we talked before we got on the air here live that, it's kind of unfortunate that Solo's going down as a bomb, right?
Yeah, it really is. People actually don't seem to understand it because the movie itself, it's been doing well with critics. It's been doing well with fans that are going to see it. Mm-hmm. It actually did have a pretty big opening weekend. I think it was, like 181 million or something that it made opening weekend.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that the way movie economics work, Solo actually, it's the most expensive Star Wars production budget yet because it cost, with everything all said and done, like $275 million. And part of the reason it cost so much was because they had issues with it where they had to switch directors, they had to go back and do reshoots. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of things that, they had to end up spending more money on. And so the film itself ended up costing a lot of money to make, but then there's also the marketing budget, which is something that a lot of people are never privy to in terms of, like, the average moviegoer. We always hear things like, oh, this movie cost, $200 million to make, but we never really get the marketing budget on that. And sometimes the marketing budget can be just as much, if not more, than the production budget is. And I know that in the case of Solo, for whatever the reason, they decided to wait very late in the game.
They did.
Where they started promoting it. The first thing we ever saw from the movie, in terms of like seeing any kind of official movie stills or trailers or anything, the first thing we saw for this movie wasn't until the Super Bowl, which was in February, I think. And so it's like, normally a Star Wars movie would be promoted, 8 months, a year ahead of time. They didn't start promoting this thing until 3 months ago. And so I think they were kind of playing catch up. They were putting all these trailers and TV commercials and everything out there to try to catch up with the fact that, it's like, oh my gosh, this movie comes out, really soon. We got to get the word out there. So they spent a ton of money on marketing. And then to make matters worse, when the film opened up in China, I believe it was, and it had a really poor return in China. Like, people didn't go see it. It only made like $10 million. So, it's just not doing well. And it's unfortunate because it really is good. It really is a fun film. And I'm hoping people will get out to see it, but ultimately it's going to go down in history as kind of a failure, and that's a shame.
Okay, I've got to ask this now. I mean, there's been some hubbub going around about Star Wars fatigue. Now, we did have The Last Jedi, in December, so that was 5 months ago. It was not a fantastic Star Wars movie. Do you think people are just kind of, is Star Wars oversaturated? Are we there? I really, like you said, I believe Han Solo, the new Solo movie is amazing. I think everybody that I've spoke to is so excited. They're so elated, and they feel like it's so much better a film than probably all of the more recent Star Wars movies. Like, it's the best one. Do you think that people are just the general folk that aren't super fanboys like us? Do you think they're just played out on Star Wars in general?
I think there is a legitimate thing in the concept of Star Wars fatigue, and I think it's more because now we're seeing less and less time in between movies. Yeah. I mean, think about, we just got The Last Jedi, what was it, November, December of last year?
Right.
And here, not even 6 months later, we're getting Solo, and I think there needs to be more time. I think that at the minimum, I think there should be a year in between movies, maybe even 2 years. Mm-hmm. But that's part of the problem. Disney bought Star Wars and Lucasfilm for $4 billion. So Disney is like, we got to get that money back. We got to keep pounding out these movies so we can get that money back. And I think that their efforts to try to make that money back as quickly as they can, I think it's resulting in them exhausting everybody on the property. And so I'm hoping that they realize that the key here is to not oversaturate the fans with these movies, like to give it a little more time, spread it out. They've already said that they're not going to release any more summer Star Wars movies. They're going to wait until, Christmas time. So hopefully that means that we will at least get a year in between movies. But, it's easy to forget that when we started all this with Force Awakens, which was 2015, right?
Yep.
December 2015. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Force Awakens, December 2015. Since then, we've had, Rogue One was the following Christmas, then The Last Jedi, and then Solo. We've already had 4 Star Wars movies in like 4 years, less than 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's a little too much, considering the fact that back when we were kids, we had to wait 3 years for the next Star Wars movie to come out.
That's right.
And, we only got 3 movies in 9 years.
Right.
I think there's definitely something to be said for the oversaturation concept.
Well, I think that the takeaway should be in this little review here is that Solo is amazing, and if you're one of the people that has just been kind of absorbing the hype or the negative press, don't believe the hype. Go see Solo because it is amazing. Better than the last couple of Star Wars movies easily. I don't know about Rogue One, but I believe it's certainly better than The Last Jedi. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I think it's safe to say it's more fun than Rogue One because as much as I enjoy Rogue One is kind of a depressing film.
Sure.
But this is more of like a fun ride of a movie. Like, this actually reminds me of why I fell in love with movies in the first place. Like being a kid and watching, these exciting action movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark and really just kind of getting lost in a great, fun narrative. I think Solo really kind of recaptures some of that feeling. It's not a perfect film, but man, it sure is a lot of fun to watch. I'll say that.
I know you do have some insight on that new movie, Upgrade, which comes out this weekend. Tell us about that one, sir.
Yes, this is really something special, and I'm hoping that people will make an effort to go check this out. So this is actually written and directed by Leigh Whannell. He is half of the creative duo that gave us Saw, the Saw movie franchise, as well as Insidious. But this is all him. This is his baby. And he wrote and directed it, and it's this really cool kind of lo-fi, sci-fi story. Takes place in the near future, and Logan Marshall Green plays a guy who's kind of an old-fashioned guy. Like, this is a guy that fixes cars. He isn't into like all this high-tech stuff that people are using in society these days. Well, I mean, in this film, like I said, it takes place in the future, so everybody's using like a lot of high-tech stuff. He and his wife are kind of, living just a happy, modest life and whatnot. They end up, one night, they're out in their car. The movie actually uses a lot of cars that have self-driving technology. And so they're out one night in their car crashes, and they're attacked by, just this gang of thugs. He is actually, like, his spinal cord is severed. So he's completely incapacitated, can't move, can't do anything. And a guy that he knows that's a scientist offers him an opportunity to try out this experimental technology that would basically fuse itself to his spinal cord and allow him to not only walk again, but give him kind of like enhanced abilities and whatnot. So it's almost kind of follows like the $6 Million Man motif in a way. But
I was going to say Steve Austin.
But this is a much darker film because it does sort of turn into a revenge film because of what happens at the beginning of the movie. He's kind of looking for revenge. And so it almost is kind of like a Death Wish type of movie, but with an interesting twist because the technology that's within him that allows him to do all these things, it's an AI technology, and it starts to kind of, not only does it think for itself, but it also can sort of control him and, help him to do this stuff. But it goes a little bit too far sometimes. He goes looking for one of the guys that was responsible for what happened at the beginning of the film, and in the process, ends up killing one of these guys. And so it becomes a question of like, okay, well, so where do you draw the line between what he should be doing and what he could be doing? Huh. And there's some interesting kind of moral play there. But the film itself is really awesome because they do this really interesting stuff where whenever the AI technology within him that's called STEM, whenever this takes over and he starts fighting, with using STEM to fight, it goes into this really cool like camera visual so that it almost kind of feels like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what I would compare it to. It almost kind of feels like when you're playing a video game and the camera is sort of following the character that you're playing. It has this very interesting look. And so the film itself is just a really cool, kind of dark, atmospheric film, but I think this is a movie that a lot of people are going to be talking about because they shot it extremely low budget. I want to say they shot it for under $5 million. It played at South by Southwest. It was an audience favorite. It won the Midnighter Award at South by Southwest. I have now seen it twice. I was blown away by it. I really thought it was just amazing what he was able to do with this movie, especially considering the modest budget on it. So I hope people check this out. It opens up this weekend. It's called Upgrade. It's a really cool flick. I will warn people that it is a little bit violent. There are certain scenes in the movie that are pretty intense and violent, so it does kind of have almost like a grindhouse sort of feel to it. But if you can get past that, and somebody asked me, they said, "Well, how would you categorize it? Would you say it's sci-fi? Would you say it's horror?" I think it's like a little bit of everything. I mean, it's like a sci-fi action horror movie, and they do some really cool stuff. So yeah, check that out this weekend. Upgrade. It's a kick, man. You're gonna dig it.
All right, again, that's Upgrade, rated R, and it clocks in at 1 hour and 35 minutes. All right, so real quick, another couple of big releases this weekend. I'm thinking what's that new Johnny Knoxville movie?
Oh, Action Point. Yeah, this is actually it's based on a real it's based on a real park that existed back in the 80s. That was kind of like an amusement park, but extremely unsafe. And one of these places that I guess they would say like, oh, if you're one of those parents that only wants to take your kid to some place that's really, really safe, where all the rides are safe and whatnot, don't come here. Right, so it's based on an actual real place, which I want to say was called Action Park or something. It's something slightly different.
Okay. Action
Point is actually based on that, and so Johnny Knoxville plays the guy who ran this. And it's a little bit of, it's obviously it's a fictionalized version of the real story. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it looks like kind of a funny comedy, definitely sort of appealing to the Jackass crowd.
Yeah.
The people that love those Jackass movies and whatnot. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff in there, and I think it even stars some of the same people from Jackass. What is it? Chris Pontius, I think, is in there. And so, but yeah, it looks like kind of a funny ride. Now, I didn't get a chance to see this, because I don't think they screened it for press, but I think they probably feel like, this is a critic-proof movie. The audience that wants to see this is going to go see it. But yeah, that does open up this weekend. Looks like it might be fun. And, they're sort of playing up kind of the same sort of thing they did with Bad Grandpa, where a portion of the movie is Johnny Knoxville in old age makeup, and he's telling his grandson about, what life was like back when he ran Action Point. Uh-huh. So I think they're kind of playing off the success of Bad Grandpa. And, so hopefully it'll be fun. I'm anxious to check it out. That does open up this weekend, as well as Adrift, which is another film with Shailene Woodley. But I didn't get a chance to see that one either. So I don't really have anything to say on that other than I know it does open up this weekend. So.
All right, well, very cool, man. Again, that's in theaters this weekend. We got Adrift, we've got Action Point, and, of course, Upgrade. And if you haven't seen Solo, go see Solo.
Absolutely. I think that, Solo is one of those movies that it seems like nowadays we live in an age where movies don't have as much of a shelf life as they used to. I was very lucky just recently. I had a chance to sit down and chat and have dinner with William Friedkin. And we were talking about how movies back in the 70s and the 80s, that sometimes movies would last in theaters for like a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
A movie that would have a really long run and last an entire year or longer in theaters because people just kept going to see it. So let's bring that back, man. Let's bring that back with Solo and have people just keep going to see this movie and force the movie theaters to keep it running. I think that would be really funny. And maybe in the long run, maybe make people say that, well, maybe it didn't quite make the money it needed to make, but I don't think you could look at it and say it was a complete failure because obviously it had legs. So hopefully people will go check it out. I really hope so. I mean, I'm trying to spread the word as much as I can. I know that.
All right, once again, let's give it up to professional Q&A moderator and speaker, film and critic at bigfanboy.com, and show director at Dallas Comic Show, the one and only Mr. Mark Walters. Thank you, sir. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Robert. Good talking to you.
Fanboy Friday with Mark Walters and Robert Miguel.
Coyote Country 104.9.